Hey, what up everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you with the most exciting fight for UFC 185. Of course, is going to be the big heavyweights going in there and getting at it. Two of the most popular fighters inside of the heavyweight division. Roy Nelson going up against Alistair Overeem. This is going to be a huge fight. When I watch wrestling, I like to watch two big dudes like Biggie Langston and Rusev get in the ring, and that's basically one of the reasons that really attracts me to the UFC when I watch these deals. I know that in these videos I talk about all the time that I'm a new fan. I've really started to really dive into UFC, and some people have told me from these reviews and these preview videos that they can tell that I'm really into this, that I'm not just making videos and things like that. But when these guys get into the ring, it's going to be an exciting match. Roy Nelson, to me, honestly looks like a guy that should be driving as a cross country trucker. This guy does not look or have the the appeal of a UFC fighter. This guy looks just like a big, overweight dude that should be, saddling up in a truck and driving chickens or something like that cross country. Just look at the guy. I mean, he looks like, all in all, he comes in to the fight at UFC 185 with a record of 21-10. I like this guy though because basically he has this quote that basically says, "Whoever fights me will say that I'm never gonna fight Roy Nelson at the end of that fight." They never want to come back into the ring with this guy. This guy trains. He was born out of Las Vegas. He's won 5 of his fights in the first round. Roy Nelson does have a downside to him. He's lost 3 of his 4 last fights. Nelson lost his last fight to Mark Hunt at Fight Night 52. Alistair Overeem, honestly, is a guy that, he has won a lot of fights inside of UFC. He's won 10 of his last 13, but he's lost 3 of his last 5. His last win coming against Steven Struik at UFC 141 is when Alistair Overeem probably got one of the biggest wins of his career by beating Brock Lesnar by TKO in the first round. Lots of people will always remember that fight as Brock Lesnar's last fight. Brock was running away from Alistair Overeem in that fight as Overeem was hitting him. He probably went into that fight a little bit too early. His body just wasn't feeling it. If you want to talk about, the wrestling appeal to this fight, basically Alistair Overeem had beat Frank Mir by decision at 169. After that fight, he called out Brock Lesnar, saying that if Brock wanted to come back to UFC, because it was heavily rumored at the time that Brock was trying to start to negotiate for a fight with UFC and leave WWE at that time, that he'd be a willing opponent. A lot of people have Brock Lesnar coming back to UFC after WrestleMania 31. At that point, fighting against Frank Mir. Of course, Alistair Overeem, the guy who beat Brock Lesnar that made him retire, has a win by decision over Frank Mir. I'm sure Alistair Overeem would be putting up a fight trying to get that. Of course, Brock Lesnar has a history with Frank Mir as well. Frank Mir was the fighter who beat Brock Lesnar in his first fight by submission after Brock came in and just dominated the guy, but wasn't ready for UFC competition. No one really taught him how to fight off a submission hold, and as soon as it was locked in, Brock was tapping out. And he trained, he got better, and he really improved. Brock was a great UFC fighter, but he's been away for UFC for 3 years. So I'm sure a lot of these heavyweights are licking their chops, hoping for Brock Lesnar to come back, hoping that they can get the call, because I think a lot of guys think they're going to be able to beat Brock. Roy Nelson, Alistair Overeem, Frank Mir, all 3 guys looking to fight Brock as soon as he comes back.